Hello, this lesson I'm going to show you how to cut objects using the split command. The split command cuts objects into two parts, like a laser cutter. In front of us in the viewport, I have created a brass washer-like object, which I'm going to use to demonstrate. On the left, you can see where I create the object, my tube, using the tube command, color it brass, and then display it. I'm going to do two examples here of splitting this object. One will be directly through the center along the y-axis, and another will be on a line parallel to the x-axis. Before I continue with the demonstrations, however, I'm going to explain how the split command works. When you split an object, you must tell the split command what object you would like to split, as well as what axis you'd like to split the object along. Objects can be split along the x, y, or z axes, or any axis parallel to these. The way that we tell the split command which axis that we want to cut the object on is that we specify one of the main axes, being one of the x, y, or z axes, and then we tell the command a point on this axis that we want our splitting axis to pass through at a right angle. It then creates this axis perpendicular to the main axis, which passes through this point and splits the object there. It takes three parameters. The first is the object we want to split. The second is this point on the main axis that we want to create our splitting axis through. The third is the all caps x, y, or z, which specifies the main axis that we're going to use. So let's split our washer named my tube along the y-axis. We will do this by typing in the line of code split my tube 0 and a capital X. This specifies the splitting axis as passing perpendicular or at a right angle to the x-axis at the point 0, which is also where the y-axis is. But we're not done yet. Split cuts our objects into two pieces. So after we split our object, we have to be able to manipulate the two objects that we create. We do this by putting a comma-separated list before the command. Let's call our first half on the negative side of the split piece 1, and our second half, which will be on the positive side of the split, piece 2. The order that I put these in determines which piece we're referring to. The first in the list will be the part of the object below the splitting point on the main axis, and the second will be above the split. Now let's just move piece 1 unit back on the x-axis so we can see our divided pieces and run our program. We also have to remember to put piece 1 and piece 2 in the show command, as these are the two pieces we're looking at, no longer my tube. We have split our tube along the y-axis and separated our halves. For one last example, I'd like to split our my tube object horizontally along a line parallel to the x-axis. Let me erase the move command so our halves are back together and run this program so you can visualize the split more clearly. So I am going to split my tube along this line here at y equals 1, which is parallel to the x-axis. I'll do this by changing the third parameter in the split command to a capital Y and changing our second parameter to a 1, making our new splitting axis go through the y-axis perpendicularly at the point y equals 1. Now I'm just going to move piece 1, which will be the section of my tube on the lower side of the split, down here, 1 unit down the y-axis using the move command. One unit down the y-axis. You can see now that my tube was cut along this line y equals 1, and the lower part was moved 1 unit down the y-axis. So to sum up the split command, remember a few key things about it. Remember that it's used to cut objects into two parts along an axis of your choosing. Remember that you define the axis that you want to split the object upon by selecting a main axis, being the x, y, or z axes, in the third parameter, and then a point at which your splitting axis will cross this main axis perpendicularly in the second parameter. Remember that the split command makes two objects, so when you use it, you have to set it equal to a comma-separated list of objects. Remember also that their order is important, and the first object will get the piece created by the split, which is below the splitting point on the main axis, and the second object on the list will get the split of the object which is above the splitting point on the main axis. Practice using the split command and see what you can do with it.